Something that should be obvious to pretty much anyone who doesn't have their head all the way up an ideological ass is the fact that the Me Too movement has always been something of nothing more than blatant corruption. A way for people who do not deserve their positions to strong-arm companies to giving them higher positions by throwing men under the bus who did nothing wrong 90% of the time. And while it probably was an important thing for, 2 weeks when Harvey Weinstein was the target of it, it is impossible to say now that it is anything more than a hate campaign as a way to artificially elevate people above their station. And of course, the symptom of this being the fact that men are being shamed to the ground, workplace romances are near non-existent, and people are terrified of ever making any kind of faux pas in a system that has no rules anymore. With one of the most blatantly disgusting versions of this turn of events coming out recently, as the former director behind the game Marathon was apparently falsely Me Too'd by allegations that people were told to say, getting him fired from Bungie, reportedly with the sole reason of ensuring that he doesn't get the major payout he was due when Sony bought Bungie. Every single thing laid out in this case is something that seems to be the core problems with the Me Too movement since its inception. So without further ado, let's actually get into that article. So coming from Phantom Pulse, written by John F. Trent, former Marathon director sues Bungie and Sony, accuses management of Me Tooing him to avoid $45 million payout. Chris Barrett, the former director at hand, has filed a lawsuit against his former employees, Bungie, and its parent company, Sony, accusing them of cooking up a Me Too accusation in order to fire him to avoid paying $45 million payment. He announced the lawsuit on X, where he wrote, "The past 9 months following my departure from Bungie have been very difficult and painful for me, as I have had to endure rampant speculation, unfounded attacks on my reputation, and innuendo about what happened behind the scenes to cause me to be fired after 25 years of loyal service. I want to thank everyone who's been there for me. I've eagerly awaited the opportunity to get the truth out there and tell my side of the story, and now is that time. Today, I filed a lawsuit against Sony and Bungie to hold them accountable for their conduct and the damage that has been done to my reputation and my career. I'm confident that the facts are on my side and look forward to clearing my name through the legal process. Because this is a pending legal matter, there's nothing else I can say about it at this time." Now, as to the details of what happened to get Barrett fired, Jason Schreier had made a post over at Bloomberg claiming that Barrett was terminated following an internal investigation in which at least 8 female employees raised complaints earlier this year that he had behaved inappropriately toward them. According to the 8 people, including multiple women who reported Barrett, as well as other Bungie employees who were either involved in the investigation or spoke to the women involved. Schreier then added, the investigation found that Barrett called lower-level female employees attractive, asked them to play Truth or Dare, and made references to his wealth and power within the studio, suggesting that he could help advance their careers, according to 2 people familiar with the case. Barrett told Bloomberg at the time, "I feel that I have always conducted myself with integrity and been respectful and supportive of my colleagues, many of whom I consider my closest friends. I never understood my communications to be unwanted, and I would have never thought they could possibly have made anyone feel uncomfortable. If anyone ever felt that way about their interactions with me, I am truly sorry." Now, if this is the exclusive issue with what Barrett supposedly said that got him fired from Bungie, they need to look a bit harder and pin some real stuff on him, because calling someone attractive in of itself is not harassment. Truth or Dare, depending on the nature, could be, but at the same time, Truth or Dare has been used as an icebreaker before. And talking about his wealth and power within the studio, while it is unbecoming to brag about your position so blatantly, it isn't something that inherently dictates abuse. And it is by no means enough to suggest that he could help advance their careers, and even if that is the case that they could help advance his careers, that doesn't dictate that it requires promiscuity to do so. And according to Dean Takahashi at VentureBeat, who viewed Barrett's lawsuit, he's alleging that they fired him to avoid giving him a $45 million payment he said he was entitled to. The lawsuit specifically claims that Bungie and Sony deliberately destroyed Barrett's reputation by falsely and publicly insinuating they had investigated Barrett and found he had engaged in sexual misconduct. Defendants did not care that none of it was true. They had blatant motivations for their brazen scheme. It really does sound like that's the case, because like I said, those accusations are very minor in the grand scheme of things. That isn't something that justifies destroying a 25-year-old career for someone who may or may not have made someone lightly uncomfortable. No mention of touching, no mention of actual sexually related comments, no mention of anything actually inappropriate other than baseline communication. And the significantly more concerning part about this allegation is that it is also noted that Bungie and Sony wanted to shift blame for and deflect attention away from their massive business failures, and to achieve those corporate objectives they were willing to sacrifice Barrett. Because for those of you who are not aware, Anthem was a financial disaster. It was supposed to destroy Destiny 2, but instead it got completely left in the dust. It failed in every single way and was a massive money sink for both Sony and Bungie, and of course they need a person to take the fall, so why not pin it on the person who they're also coincidentally trying to prevent from giving a massive payout to. Sony and Bungie's business failures have become public knowledge, with Bungie CEO Pete Parsons announcing the company was eliminating nearly 30% of its workforce at the end of July. Due to rising costs of development and industry shifts as well as enduring economic conditions, it has become clear that we need to make substantial changes to our cost structure and focus development efforts entirely on Destiny and Marathon. That means beginning today, 220 of our roles will be eliminated, representing roughly 17% of our studio's workforce. It's interesting they're going to continue working on Marathon even though that game has substantially flopped in every single way. He later revealed that the company was integrating 155 employees, or roughly 12% of its workforce, into parent company Sony. We are deepening our integration with Sony Interactive Entertainment, working to integrate 155 of our roles, roughly 12%, into SIE over the next few quarters. So basically, Sony royally screwed the pooch on this one and are really being forced to lay in the bed they made over it. Parsons also shared that an incubation project was also going to be spun off into its own studio. We're working with PlayStation Studios leadership to spin out one of our incubation projects, an action game set in a brand new science fantasy universe, to form a new studio within PlayStation Studios to continue its promising development. Nevertheless, the lawsuit alleges that Barrett was notified of his termination via Microsoft Teams. Couldn't even be bothered to hand him a yellow slip. And an investigation only found that he had engaged in gross misconduct and was in violation of Bungie's harassment policy, but did not explain what it was or provide any details at all. Which is basically all we need to confirm that this was just a blatant witch hunt. Given the fact that they can't name a single allegation actually made against him, and a credible one at that, proves without a shadow of doubt that they were trying to get rid of this guy. Without proof, you're innocent. You cannot be found... In the States, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But when it comes to Me Too allegations, particularly those that are founded on a take for power, are that they end up following the opposite doctrine, guilty until founded innocent, and in a case like this, you can't be found innocent until years later. Hopefully, Barrett will be found innocent if he is innocent, of course. Since my entire argument hinges on the notion that he is in fact an innocent man and was thrown under the bus, and not actually a sexual pervert trying to get it on with all of the new interns. According to Takahashi, Barrett was never given a chance to engage with the allegations in the first place. In fact, Barrett was allegedly terminated while he was on leave for mental health. And that last part really raises a lot of red flags. However, he did attend an interview with Sony's legal department, but was advised not to bring legal counsel. To me, when you're advised not to bring legal counsel, that means the only thing you should do is bring legal counsel, or at least a tape recorder, so you can defend yourself when they throw baseless accusations at you. The suit goes on to describe some of the things that happened in that meeting. For instance, Barrett was never asked whether he had ever engaged in inappropriate sexual conduct, whether he ever sent inappropriate sexual or pornographic materials to a coworker, or whether he ever retaliated against a coworker for rebuffing his advances or discriminated against a female colleague on the basis of her sex. Barrett was not asked those questions because Barrett did not engage in, and he has not been accused of any such conduct. The lawsuit noted that they then completed the Machiavellian trifecta by providing wildly misleading statements to Bloomberg designed to 1. Deflect blame for Sony's poorly performing $30.6 billion acquisition of Bungie and delays in video game production by casting shade on Barrett for his role on Marathon, and 2. Shift blame for their own public #MeToo problems by falsely insinuating that the accusations of severe misconduct had been directed at Barrett when they had not. While it's really good to know what wasn't included in that meeting, it'd be really nice to know what was said, because what was said might shed some light into the actual issues at hand, and may actually reveal that Barrett is possibly omitting some information. Though of course that's all speculation, because it's impossible to know what we don't know. And the crux of the accusation on Barrett's end is the fact that it was all about money. Everything was pinned on him to make him the fall guy for Marathon, to make him the fall guy for all of the Me Too accusations Sony was dealing with already. And then finally, he was thrown under the bus to ensure they never had to pay him the huge sum that they were required to pay him, because that would severely interfere with their bottom line, as they were already dealing with massive losses because of how poorly Anthem did. So what exactly did they end up paying him in regards to it? Was it that they gave him nothing? Well, as for the $45 million payment, they reportedly came in the wake of Bungie being bought by Sony for $3.6 billion back at the end of January 2022. According to Takahashi, Barrett signed an agreement that would have paid him in the range of $45 million. However, he was only paid $1.8 million despite being owed $45.6 million. If nothing else, then the sheer fact that money's on the line makes me believe that this is a 100% true case scenario, and he really was thrown under the bus to ensure the best scenario for Sony, not expecting that given the culture, he would ever be able to come back, defend himself, and possibly reclaim that money he's owed. So if these accusations are in fact false and he really is innocent as he claims to be, then I really hope that Sony is owing him a lot more than just the $45.6 million. Because we really need more wins on the masculine side of the Me Too movement to show that you cannot just swing around the hammer of accusations with impunity. Whereas multiple people who have falsely made accusations have gone away scot-free. I think it's time in the culture we start realizing that it's time to move past that and start holding people accountable when they try to ruin other people's lives for petty reasons. But that's pretty much all I've got. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Barrett's accusations are accurate? Do you think he really is innocent? And I will see you guys on the next one.